Hi, everybody. Welcome to Navigating Your Life. This is a new video series of 12 sessions that is designed to help you to create the life you want. A life of health, success, accomplishment, and happiness. Today's a special talk. Usually in these kinds of video presentations, not just with me, but other people, we talk about the external world. What do you have to do to manage to cope with the external world, other people, business, money? And we're going to be talking about those topics. But I want to go to a different place. I want to go to what's going on inside our brains. Because if you understand and have an appreciation of the way your brains with an S, I'm not saying brain, but brains, I'll explain that in a minute. If you have a better idea as to what's going on there, you have much more of a success in making the world work. So making your brains work for you. I'm Moss Jackson. I'm a psychologist, executive coach. I'm a best-selling author. And what I do is I combine two things. I combine coaching, which is helping people design a great future, to be able to create vision, goals, action plans. And I combine with my work as a psychologist, which is helping people regulate their anxiety, to manage their nervous system, to be able to be resilient and bounce back, and to stay focused. And that's what makes my work unique. So my mission is to teach people to live extraordinary long lives of success, accomplishment, and satisfaction. I wish I could say that's a picture of me sailing that boat, but one day I'll have a boat like that and I'll sail. And maybe we'll do workshops on the boat. Anyway, I have a question for you. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? Feel like you're floundering back and forth from task to task? You feel out of control. If you're a normal human being, it should be yes, yes, and yes. We all get overwhelmed. We all flounder, and we all eventually feel like we're out of control. The problem is if you're floundering and getting overwhelmed and out of control too long, your nervous system gets used to you being really, really whacked and in a lot of trouble. And it creates chronic stress syndrome. Chronic stress syndrome, I think, is the killer of the 21st century. It's invisible, but it really beats us up and really drains us. So before I get into the three brains, I have a question for you. Let's say you're leaving on a trip across country, say from Philadelphia to San Francisco, and you have three drivers lined up, and they're all very happy to drive you, and they want to drive, but only one can drive. So you have a nice bus that's very comfortable. You bring your family and your friends. And here are the three drivers. One is a computer. Now, your computer in this case may look like an Android. On my screen, it's just a computer. You have a gorilla and you have an alligator. Well, here's the question. If you had a choice of having the computer, the gorilla, or the alligator be your driver, who would you choose? So when I've done this with other people and I've asked them, why did you choose one over the other? Say, I chose the computer because he could analyze and figure out the best way to get there. The gorilla would be things like, well, gorillas seem to have a lot of fun. They like to hang out with other gorillas. They have their clans. They eat bananas. They throw coconuts at lions. And man, who knows? It could be a lot of fun. We may not necessarily get there, but it'd be a lot of fun. The alligator, some people know that the alligator represents a particular part of the brain called your survival brain. And all it cares is your safety. So that's what it might choose. So you could choose the analyzer, the emotional brain, a gorilla, or the alligator. So I think a good way to get into this material is to look at a case study. Andy was a guy in his 40s, and he went on a golf outing with his company. And there's a guy, Bob, who he doesn't work directly with, but he's an executive in the corporation. And as Andy was getting ready in his foursome to hit the ball before he approached the tee, Bob passes him by and says something like, I sure hope you get that goddamn team of yours and that region fixed up because, your sales are slipping. And he said it with a smirk. And then he walked off, strutted off. It left Andy flabbergasted. He was embarrassed in front of his peers, felt like, what's going on here? What does the company know? Or why would he say something like this? And he felt devastated. Not only did it screw up his game and give him a bad time for the rest of the day, it gave him a bad stomach ache, a headache, and it really created a big problem for him at work. He started to lose his confidence, got angry at his sales team, and the problem was he felt bullied. He felt really stabbed in the back by Bob. Bob is known to be a guy who has a big mouth. He's sarcastic, but Andy took it too personally. He wondered even if he should get another job. He was floundering, and he came to see me. So what happened in Andy's brain? The normal brain has about 100 billion neurons. 10% of our brain is conscious. The rest of it, 90%, is unconscious. You know, I'm looking at the screen here. I'm thinking. I'm moving my body. Once in a while, I take a sip of water. All that's unconscious. The conscious part is the material I'm delivering to you today. If you're paying attention, there's a big part of your mind conscious and trying to figure out what I'm saying, and hopefully it's helpful. Now, the brain communicates with every cell and organ in your body. You have 60 trillion cells in your body, and the brain and your cells are communicating back and forth. There's a lot of activity 24/7, and it doesn't stop until you're dead. The good news is that the brain is highly plastic and flexible. It's a workhorse, and it can be redesigned. What our research is telling us is, over the last 10 years, is that we're figuring out how to redesign your brain, how to create new neural pathways. It used to be thought the adolescent, when he reached 17 or 16, the brain stopped growing. We now know it keeps growing to 28, 38, 58, 68. For your entire life, your brain is capable of growing. You just have to know how to do it. It's like having a garden. If you don't water your garden and feed it, it stops growing and you get weeds. You've got to do the same thing with your brain, and we'll talk about that. So let's get back to our gorilla, our computer, and our alligator. So we have three brains that are layered upon each other. One brain, it's called the triune brain. The oldest brain, the reptilian brain, represented by your alligator, is over 400 million years old. And all it cares about is survival. The only three things it knows how to do is fight, flee, or freeze. That is it. No morality, no conscience, no compassion. It's just pure survival. And that brain was very, very helpful to us 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000 years ago. We're living in the jungle, and there were predators or enemies around. We really had to pay attention to know how to run or attack back, or just hide out and freeze for a while until danger passed. The problem is we don't live in that kind of world anymore, at least most of us. So fortunately, about 1,000,000 years ago, the primate brain developed, which is your emotional brain, the middle brain. And that allowed us as mammals to bond together, to hang out, to take care of each other, to raise our young. The primate brain is your emotional brain. It allows us to be connected, to have compassion, to be generous, to help each other out. That's 1,000,000 years old. And then a scant 100,000 years ago, the mammalian brain, the new brain, developed, which is really our thinking brain, solving problems and one place to the other. So we have these three brains. Hopefully, these three brains work as a team, that the logical brain and the emotional brain take most of the time to solve problems and help us get along with each other. The problem is, if the thinking and the emotional brains, the gorilla and the computer, cannot figure out a problem, anxiety gets triggered in the limbic system, the emotional brain. It gets kind of panicky. And if the reptilian brain thinks we're in danger, it just takes over. It pushes away your thinking and emotional brain, and all you have is flee, fight, or freeze. So a big job is for the gorilla, the computer, and the alligator to figure out how they're going to work together. How can the emotional brain and the thinking brain work together to be in relationships, work together? Because in Andy's case, his computer couldn't figure out what's going on with Bob. Why is Bob making a comment like that? And his gorilla got really, really upset, felt hurt, got angry, got scared, and then the alligator part of his brain took over, and he just wanted to flee, hide out. The shame took him over. And we'll talk what I did to help Andy get his brains back together and handle Bob later. So, what happens when the thinking and emotional brain is in conflict? Fight or flight or panic. That's exactly what happened to Andy. He freaked out. He flipped his lid. He felt humiliated. He really wanted to run away and get off the golf course, but that would have made him look really, really stupid. So he stuck it out, but man, he was in really panic. Actually, he had developed PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, just from someone's stupid comment. Poor Andy. So what can we do to use our brains for your own good? How to stop being a victim in life and learn how to navigate? There are seven tools that might be helpful here. These were the tools that were helpful for Andy, because I had to do something to help Andy to regain his composure. Number one, I had to get him to see that he was doing too much negative thinking, catastrophizing, taking Bob's comment personally, thinking everybody was talking about him. They all knew he was failing. I said to him, where's your proof? Where's the proof that you're in trouble, Andy? You know, maybe Bob just made a stupid comment to yank your chain. I mean, isn't that what guys often do in the golf course? And Andy paused and said, Moss, there's no proof that my region is doing badly. In fact, we tend to do very well. Our figures are a little bit down, but that's because we're in the lower part of our sales cycle. And in a month or two, they should come back up. Just starting to use his thinking computer brain started to help him move out of negative thinking. And I also asked him, when he started to get negative about picturing Bob and feeling embarrassed, I said, go into your body, Andy. Feel where you're feeling the tension. He felt the tension in his stomach and his chest. Now, often when we're really scared, our breathing gets rapid and we feel tension in our chest. When we feel tension in our stomach, it's often when we feel like we're being beaten up and powerless. So he was feeling anxious and powerless. And I just said, just pay attention to where you're feeling the tension in your body. Give it a score of 1 to 10, 10 being very, very anxious, and breathe into it. And we did some other exercises that I'll introduce you to probably at another time that have to do with releasing, letting go of tension and anxiety, and shifting your thinking. So we had to get him out of the trap he was in. He was in the pit called negative thinking. And unfortunately, any of us are in the pit of negative thinking. We just stay there and we obsess and make ourselves miserable. So the first step was to help him reduce his negative thinking. Then I asked Andy to do some self-regulation. He asked me, what does that mean, self-regulation? I said, well, there are several things we can do. We can do some deep breathing. And when you breathe out, just imagine you're breathing out all that tension, like a fire hose shooting out a stream of water. Just shoot out the tension from your body. So he breathed, and he used some deep breathing, and he'd make a sound like, ah, ah. Sometimes you make a sound, whether it's that kind of or oh, or just getting the sound and the breath out seems to resonate in the chest and loosen up the chest muscles and help out breathing. So we did breathing. We breathed out the tension. He liked that quite a bit. Then I said, use your trash bin. He said, Moss, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't need to throw anything away. I said, yes, you do. You need to throw away your crazy thinking, your negative thinking. Let these thoughts just go through your head and just drop off. Are they coming in your right side of your head or the left side of your head? He said, I never thought about that. I think they're coming in my left side. Good. Let them come in and let them drop out the right side, like they're dropping out of your ear or out the right side of your brain. He liked that. That metaphor made a lot of sense to him. So sometimes we need to throw our stupid thinking, negative thinking into the trash bin. I asked him to remember a successful time. So now we're using his imagination to increase his level of competence and confidence. And he really enjoyed that. He remembered his sales figures last year, an award he and his team got from the president of the company. So I just had to marinate in that wonderful feeling. And then I said, Andy, if we could find an animal or something in nature that would be your success icon, what would it be? He said, I never thought about that. I said, well, what would you like? What would represent you feeling this really powerful, successful, safe person? He said, I think it would be Indiana Jones. I said, I think that's great. So imagine you're Indiana Jones. Fill yourself up with Indiana Jones. Breathe like Indiana Jones. He says, I'm imagining myself holding a whip and my gun nearby, got my boots, my leather jacket, a girlfriend someplace in the forest. He broke out into a big smile. And I said, from now on, Andy, when you have to deal with Bob, just let Indiana Jones show up. That's your success icon. And he did that. And it made a big difference in terms of his confidence in dealing with Bob. We then had him have a good feeling of success. So Rick Hansen talks about our brains have about 2,500 thoughts a day, conscious thoughts, 2,000 of which are negative. So 80% of our thinking really sucks. It's negative. So we have to pull the weeds, which is decrease the negative thinking, and water and take care of the success feelings and thoughts. So we spent some time indulging and marinating in a success experience. And he was very quick. Andy was very quick to remember it, then go back to negativity. I said, Andy, no, hang out there in the good feeling. Hang out there feeling successful. Let your Indiana Jones fill you up. We did that for about 20 to 30 seconds. And each time he came in, we had marinate and indulge yourself in the success experience. It really made a big difference for him. Now, we also talked about the sales cycle. I said, Andy, help me understand in your company, what is the sales cycle? How often does success happen? How often does failure? That was good because he was able to picture, and actually he drew it on my whiteboard, a picture of the sales cycle. That, depending upon the season or the holiday, sales either went up or went down. He said, Moss, I forgot. This is all a life of ups and downs. And successful salespeople, successful navigators, not survivors or victims, navigators are people who have control over their lives. He said, we just realized that there are ups and downs. We save money for a rainy day, and we bust our humps when things are going well. We did some problem solving and assertiveness. I said to him, so imagine back at the golf course, what could you have done if Indiana Jones was inside of you and your alligator didn't take you over and panic you, and you could use your thinking brain and your emotional brain? You might, he looked at me, he said, that's a good question. I could say to Bob, well, Bob, that may be, I'll be interested in your thoughts about it, but also, are you aware of the things that people are saying about you? This isn't a good time to talk about it, but if you want to take me out for lunch and check that out, I'll be glad to go out to lunch with you. He also could, as another option, look at Bob and realize that Bob is a jerk. He was overweight, smoking a cigar, drinking a can of beer, and he was just the big mouth of the company. He could have said, look, why am I giving any credit to an asshole like Bob? He just didn't do it, but that's an alternative option. We talked about assertiveness training, which is he going back to Bob and saying, Bob, you made a pretty nasty comment or warning that I'm in some kind of trouble or my sales team is in trouble. Maybe you assertiveness training, paralysis, and feeling overwhelmed, action. Talking to your mirror, many actors and athletes do this. They get in front of a mirror and they talk at themselves as if they're Indiana Jones or successful, as if they're giving a speech. So it really becomes part of the second nature. And the last step was taking the action steps, what to do next. Andy knew he had to stop avoiding. He had to clarify, confront, and create mutual respect between him and possibly Bob. He liked the clarifying and confronting. He wasn't very happy about creating mutual respect because he thought Bob was a real jerk. And he gave himself a pat on the back. These were action steps. There are many other action steps Andy could take, but those are the ones he liked. So for you, there are ways to retrain your brain. Every time you calm down or you talk it over with a friend or you reframe the issue and put the upsetting situation into perspective, you create different options, you take action, your brain loves it. It's like feeding the garden, and the flowers and the plants grow, and new parts of your brain will get laid down like tracks across the prairie. And so we retrain our brain. It's called neuroplasticity. Our brains can be developed for the rest of our lives if we maintain our wits, don't panic, and just breathe into the anxiety, realize the reptile sometimes gets scared, takes over, calm ourselves down first. That's called self-regulation. Talk it out, rethink it, allow the computer and the gorilla to work together and explore your options, and taking action. I think taking action is a really, really great antidote to anxiety. It's the best one I know of. So if you're interested in what I have to say, there are a couple of things you can do to learn more. I have 2 books, Navigating for Success, Passion, Goals, and Action, with a foreword by Dick Vanille, who brought the Rams to, who had the worst playing record of 3 wins, 13 losses back in the 90s, and in 3 years took them to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, using many of the principles and practices in my book, Navigating for Success. I like Dick's quote: "Moss and Navigating for Success helped me set sail on a course that allowed me to go back and coach, understand both my strengths and weaknesses." And the second book is I Didn't Come to Say Goodbye, Navigating the Psychology of Immortality. You see, we're going to be living longer and longer every year. There will be breakthroughs around radical life extension. But I wanted to get a better handle on what can we as psychologists and coaches do to help people eliminate chronic stress syndrome and probably satisfy 3 basic psychological needs of control, of connection, and safety. If you have those 3 needs satisfied on a daily basis, you stand a better chance of living longer, like between 11 and 25 years, not developing inflammatory diseases, and staying healthy and vital, keeping your wits about you. So both books are useful from my point of view. I get good reviews and love you to take a look. You get them on Amazon. And if you want to stay connected to me, love to hear from you. We have updates we have a video webinar like this. These could be 12 sessions around a half hour each about a key idea or theme on navigating life. I do blog posts, both a narrative, a video, and a written one, and speaking engagements. And I've put together a really good workshop, interesting workshop called Navigating for Success, Navigating Your Life. So if you're interested, check me out on any of these ways about doing it, and I hope to hear from you soon. And until I speak to you again, I wish you the best of luck and success. Be well, and watch out for jerks like Bob. Take good care.